What's up, guys? It's Toad back with you as usual. Happy New Year's Eve. I'm about to clinch only my second losing year in 18 years doing this. So isn't that awesome? Unless I sweep the board today, that's what's going to happen. Yesterday was a slight loss, 2-2-1. I'm not happy about it. Started out nice with the Kansas State outright underdog win, money line cash on that. Colorado was hanging within that number. I think they almost had a wire-to-wire cover. I think they were hanging in that number the whole time. And then just because I got the best number basically at 10, they wound up pushing, even though I think they were within 4 with 2 minutes left in that game. Whatever. And then, so that wound up being a push, which if that was a win, I would have had a winning day. Utah in hockey didn't get there. I mean, that was a 2-2 game, pretty deep into the game, and they completely fell apart. And then what else did I lose on? I don't even remember. Oh, yeah, the Golden State Warriors absolutely annihilated. I don't know what that was. And I won on whatever the other game was. What was it? I had another NBA game, I think. What was my game? I don't even remember. Man. Whatever it was a winner, though. Do I remember what it was? I don't even know. What was it? I can look, actually. Because I don't know. My mind is completely gone. I have no memory left. And it's going to bug me if I don't remember what the game was. I'm too autistic. I'm too OCD. I have to remember every single game that I had yesterday. What the hell was my other play? Now it's wait a minute. What? Oh, it was the Philadelphia 76ers. All right. Thank you, mind. You can still remember things. Yeah, 76ers laid the points on the road. I'm pretty sure they won by margin. All right. Today I'm going to have a lot of plays. I got 4 college basketball plays, 1 NBA play, 2 NHL plays, and 1 college football bowl play where I'm not even getting close to the best number on it. I should have played it back when I knew that the line was going to go in this one direction, but I'm still going to play it anyway. So I got, how many plays is that going to be? 8. So let's sweep the board, man. If we could sweep the board or maybe go 7-1, then I might actually finish with a winning year. Happy New Year's, everyone. Let's see if we can do it. All right, let's get into it because there's a lot going on here. There's college basketball, a lot of college basketball today, man. Some teams are getting into conference play now. I mean, I could run down a couple of these bigger matchups real quick. I guess NC State and Virginia getting into ACC play there. Both of these teams, I think, are pretty down this year, so I don't know what to expect from this. Virginia's at home and sitting at a pick 'em. So the odds makers are telling you NC State's the better team. Virginia, 67% of tickets, 53% of cash over on NC State. I don't really have a read on this game otherwise, other than, you got to look when you get into right after the holiday break, you got to see which teams haven't played since before the holidays, because then if they have that huge break, as I always say, if they went into that break hot, it tends to break their momentum and it's a negative. If they went into that break on a bad note, then the breaking that momentum actually could be a positive. But then if you have a team that played more recently, then you have to gauge, well, are they still well rested? Is that just going to give them some new momentum going forward? Pretty difficult to gauge, although this one just straight up market read would indicate kind of towards the NC State side in this one. Charles, what's up, man? West Virginia is at Kansas, but of course Kansas is a huge favorite, and there's no real other way to read this other than both teams are probably going to show up for this one, and it's just a matter of Kansas is the better team, so I think they're probably likely to cover the big number here, up from 13-14, 58% of the tickets, 86% of the cash. Excuse me, as my heartburn keeps going crazy here. Then we got Seton Hall is playing Xavier, and this game's a little bit interesting as well. Xavier's down from 11-9, although I do think they're the better team, 9.5 actually. 70% of tickets, 93% of the cash. So even though the line's moved against Xavier, it looks like some of the cash is coming in on the Xavier side. And if you look at this game, the way that this game sets up is that Xavier, they're the better team, but they're sitting at 8-5. So the record doesn't look that good, although Seton Hall, both teams are 0-2 in conference. Seton Hall, as I've been saying, they're definitely down this year. They're sitting at 5-8. So, I mean, everybody can look at these records and still know that Xavier is the better team, which they are. But Xavier, I think they went into the break. This was before the holiday break. They had 3 ranked matchups in a row, and they played competitively in all of them. So if they were coming out of that stretch and they had like no time off, I'd be looking to fade Xavier here because I'm like, man, all three of those are really competitive, tough games against Cincinnati, UConn, Marquette, and they came close to winning every single one of them. But because they have all this time off now, the holiday break, I don't want to come in and try to fade Xavier here, man. I think that break can kind of let them rest up and put that aside, and they should actually probably come out and be focused on this game just because they haven't played in a while. Seton Hall, they went into the break on a very negative note, though, ugly note. I actually played them against Georgetown, and they actually did cover the number there, barely. They made a comeback and covered. But Seton Hall, I mean, they're just not a very good team, but at least I think that was before the holiday break as well. So I think they went into the holiday break on a negative, so they can use that break to maybe help kind of fix some things there. So I actually don't think either of those teams is really in that much of a negative spot. So it's difficult to say. Jeffrey, thanks for coming back, man. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Sixers. I finally remembered that. I'm pretty sure they won and covered. I was kind of eyeing the game. I think they had a big lead at the end, and I didn't actually see how it finished, but I'm pretty sure it was a win. I didn't even want to look last night, man. And then we got Utah and Baylor is actually interesting because Utah has now moved over to the Big 12. So they're going to an unfamiliar environment here to Baylor, but I'm not sure that I would say Baylor is in the greatest spot, really, because then they went into the break just beating up on inferior teams pretty much, and they have Iowa State coming up in a few days, which is a pretty big game. Iowa State's been very good so far this year. So is Baylor going to overlook Utah? Are they going to overlook their conference opener? Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it could be a pretty big look ahead spot to Iowa State, but because it is their conference opener, they probably don't want to lose their conference opener to a conference newcomer here like Utah. I guess they still have reason to show up here, but Utah also went into the break losing to Iowa. So I think Utah's in a better spot to like refocus and bounce back after that. So I think they can use that break actually to more of their advantage, whereas Baylor went into the break on a big win streak. So I actually do still lean to taking the points with Utah in that one, but not going to be a play for me. Baylor's continuing to go up from 10.5 to 12 with juice. So it's probably going to go through the 12. When you get in numbers like this in basketball, though, the numbers aren't key. It's basically just like take the best number that you can. Baylor, 52% of tickets on them. And I'm not shocked if the public is coming in on the Baylor side. 93% of the cash, though, on Utah. So seemingly the money percentage that's being tracked at least may agree with me on that one. Will, what's up, man? Thank you, sir. I appreciate the praise, man. Wake Forest is at Syracuse, and this is kind of a lower tier ACC game, although Syracuse is pretty down this year, man. So if Syracuse is getting any action, I think it's basically just because they are Syracuse and that's their name. Wake Forest is the better team, as the odds makers are telling you. They've flipped from a 1-point dog to a 1.5-point favorite in this game, but we do see 55% of the tickets on them and 86% of the cash on Syracuse. So it makes for a tough market read with this pregame screen that I look at. I think I accidentally called it Wager Talk. Wager Talk is the site that I love, like their sports content, like their videos. They put out a bunch of my favorite pro handicappers are over there, even though they do sell their picks, but a lot of them left pregame. I don't like pregame really, or the guys who are at pregame at this point, but their odds screen here is still like the best free one that's out there in my opinion. So, but this market read is really, it's difficult to read the market when you see the line moving in one direction. It's, like Wake Forest has crossed through from a dog to a favorite, but then it looks like the money is actually completely on the other side. So it's like, well, wait a minute. How is that even possible? Because what drove that line if it wasn't the money, so it confuses me. It messes with my mind, man. What else do we have for games here? I don't know. There are a couple other big games, maybe. And BYU, Arizona State, both playing their first Big 12 game, as they're both newcomers to the Big 12, and this is a Big 12 conference opener for them. Arizona State, by the way, apparently has a guy named Jihad. So, oh man, you can get some jokes out of that one, man. That means Arizona is going to come in and terrorize BYU in this game, right? They're gonna lead a Jihad into Mormon territory here. But the odds makers are telling you, even though both these teams are 9-2, the odds makers have BYU lined as a 10.5-point favorite in this one. So, I mean, take from that what you will, but the odds makers are telling you BYU is actually the significantly better team. But if you look at the schedule these teams have faced so far, BYU has not really faced a very difficult schedule so far. So I don't know, but odds makers, power ratings guys still telling you BYU is significantly better than Arizona State. And I would not disagree with them, but it's not really a situation where I want to come in and play anything there. North Texas is starting their American conference play here, and they do have potentially a look ahead to Memphis. So North Texas, I mean, if they had a bunch of time off after this win streak that they were on, that could actually disrupt their winning momentum here. And they got UAB. I mean, UAB is a decent team. It is still their conference home opener. So very similar spot to what I just mentioned with Baylor. It's like, are they going to overlook UAB because Memphis is coming up next and that's a bigger game? I don't know, because UAB has been pretty good in this conference as well. So, and because it's the conference home opener, they may not overlook it. But UAB, I mean, they went into the break. I guess I thought they lost a couple of games, but they didn't. They actually won a couple of games going into the break as well. So hard to gauge this game, and it'll only be UAB's second road game. They lost the first one to High Point. High Point is a pretty good team for one of those lower conferences at the very least. So not going to come in and get involved in that one either, but I would have a slight lean against North Texas. North Texas is down from 6.5 to 5.5, although it's 6.5 with reduced juice to 5.5 with juice. So not a huge move there, really. And 53% of tickets, 95% of the cash on North Texas. So it looks like they are getting actually the cash percentage coming in on them. So makes for another difficult read. Why check the market? Most people, so what's going on right now is the NFL is the books have lost the last few weeks in the NFL. So the NFL usually, you get into a situation where the public usually has a couple of good weeks during those like bye weeks in October in the NFL. For some reason, that just always happens. But then the odds makers will like readjust and they'll start skewing lines to like juice up the favorite even more. So you're getting like less and less value on the favorites for the most part. So usually once those weeks are over, as you get into like the holiday weeks, usually like I start doing way better again. The public starts doing way worse. The books start doing better again, but that didn't happen this year. So it's in the NFL. The books have actually they've taken a beating the last like 3 weeks. So it's really been like 6 out of the last 7 or 6 out of the last 8 weeks really have been bad for the books as far as like the NFL sides are concerned. And it's been bad for me. Whenever the public is winning, I'm usually not winning, even though I know I've joined the public on a few plays. Like I did join them on the Chargers this past week, but I faded them on that Atlanta Falcons play that I had, and that should have won, in my opinion. I mean, probably in most people's opinion. But the public is cleaning up. The public won again last night on a very public Detroit Lions team where it looked like the Lions really had no business covering that number last night. San Francisco really came to play in that game last night. They were winning for a bunch of the game. They were covering almost the entire way. So that was another kind of bullshit result there. And Detroit, I mean, I know they showed up and they played to win. They played their starters all the time. But San Francisco really went all out for that game. And it was still a situation where I think you're an idiot if you were laying the points with Detroit in that game still, because it's a game that still was fairly meaningless to Detroit as far as their season entirely comes down to this next week. So it's like, why would they want to get their guys tired? Why would they want to potentially get them hurt? Dan Campbell is a maniac, dude. I don't know what else to tell you about that. BYU has special underwear. Yeah, well, the Arizona State maybe sending the underwear gnomes in there. Yeah, I mean, I try to make sense of it, but I always read the market, man. Like I try to figure out like what is the market telling me? Like there are a lot of signals you can pick up. So I do multiple things. Like I look at situations, but I also read the market. So I do some weird like combination of both those things. St. John's and Creighton is actually one of the better games today as well. A big East matchup here where St. John's is having to go out to Omaha. Although Creighton's been in the Big East, for a while now. So St. John's is used to having to go out there probably like once a season, more or less. But it's still not really that familiar an environment for them. Creighton looks like they're still sitting at a pick 'em, but it looks like the juice is kind of coming in on the Creighton side. So the line's slightly creeping towards Creighton. They are public with 91% of tickets, 99% of cash on Creighton. I don't know what to do with this game, man, because St. John's, Ken Baum has St. John's ranked as a significantly better team over Creighton. Creighton, they've lost a couple of guys they had on those really good Creighton teams. They lost Shireman to the draft, where he didn't do well for the Celtics in the preseason or whatever. And I think he's in the D League or something. So I don't know what to think about that. Creighton, they do still have Kalkbrenner and whatever, as the commentators always call him Kalkbrenner. And I'm like, are you just afraid to say cock? Like, isn't it Kalkbrenner? I don't know, man, but they do still have him. So they have their big man there. But St. John's, I think, is actually kind of flying under the radar right now, to be honest. So I don't know. Even though their record is actually significantly better than Creighton's, it looks like the public still doesn't want to touch St. John's, which kind of weird to me, man. I mean, St. John's, they got Rick Pitino there now, so he's probably bringing in all their strippers and hookers there to get them all pumped up and whatever. He seems to be turning that program around pretty quickly. They debatably should have made the tournament last year, and they may be headed to the tournament this year, man. So we'll see. But I don't want to touch that game, but it is an interesting game. And I believe St. John's is actually the better team in that one. And then we got, before I talk about all my play, I guess I will talk about all my plays last. But we do have, what was I just looking? Oh, Marquette at Providence. This one is kind of interesting as well. You got Marquette. I mean, they're ranked as a top 10 team in the country. I think they are probably close to being ranked appropriately. Marquette, they're coming off beating Butler and Xavier, and I think that was before the break. So they went into the break on a 2-game win streak, but I don't know if this break is really going to be something that totally like disrupts their momentum. I mean, they had a close win over Xavier. I don't know. Maybe you could say it still will disrupt their momentum a little bit. They do have to go on the road to Providence here, and they do have Creighton up next, and Providence hasn't been playing very well. So it is possible that Marquette kind of overlooks Providence here, and Providence, they went into the break on a negative, losing a couple of games in a row. So they've had a lot of time off to readjust to that, although they didn't lose by that much. And Providence, I mean, they haven't been playing well, but they also haven't had that easy a schedule. I mean, Rhode Island, I do think Rhode Island's overrated, which I'm going to talk about in a little minute, in a minute. But Rhode Island, they always are going to step up their game to face Providence, man, because Providence is kind of the bigger brother in the state of Rhode Island because they are the Big East team there. We know Indiana's not as good as that 14 ranking was, but still, I don't think it's really necessarily a horrible loss losing to Indiana. Davidson is not that bad. Oklahoma is actually pretty good. St. Bonaventure, pretty good as well. I'm going to talk about them in a little bit as well. And St. John's, as I said, is good too. But Providence, I mean, they don't have any impressive wins besides BYU. So they've lost to basically all their better competition, which doesn't look great. But who knows? I mean, Providence, this is going to be their second conference game, I guess, because they did play St. John's already. But it's Marquette coming into their place, man. I expect Providence is probably going to show up in this game and try to bounce back from going into that break on a loss streak, break that losing momentum. But Marquette is up from 5 to 6.5, 57% of the cash coming in on them, and 54% of the tickets on Providence. It would really shock me if the public is actually taking Providence here. I don't see why they would be. I mean, you got Marquette, the ranked team with the way better record. It seems like the public would really only come in on the Marquette side, but it does look like the money has actually come in on the Marquette side, moving them a bit as well. So I'm not going to touch that game. And a game that I almost played, I agree with the Boise State side at Wyoming. Boise's up from 6 to 7 now. So 7, kind of a key number in basketball because it's that 3-score threshold where once it hits that, the teams stop intentionally fouling. So you'd want to try to get Boise State at below the 7 if you really could. It looks like maybe that line's gone now, though. 52% of the tickets, 57% of the cash on Boise. I agree with Boise in this game because Boise, they're coming off a lackluster performance, man, where they almost lost as a favorite at San Jose State. So not a very good performance from Boise there. And they're actually losing for a bunch of this game. And they actually had to make a comeback, and then they barely escaped. So a team that's a favorite like they were here, 8.5-point favorite, and they barely escape in a game they know they should have won more easily. I expect a bounce back out of Boise State here. They only shot 33.3 from 3, which isn't good. They had a lot of turnovers in the game. So I expect them to kind of clean that up coming to this game against Wyoming. I mean, Wyoming's actually not the easiest place to play either, but Wyoming, even though, yes, they should step it up for Boise. So that's kind of one of the reasons I don't want to actually come in and play Boise here is that Wyoming, it's a game where they still should be focused on Boise because Boise's a big team coming into their place. But Wyoming is pulling off an upset over Nevada at home as a 5.5-point underdog. So that's a pretty big win for Wyoming. They really uglied up the game, and they were in the game the whole time. They wound up winning. They shot 52.4% from three, though. That's not something you usually see out of a Wyoming team that usually plays ugly offensively and like slows the game way down. So I don't think you're going to see that again out of Wyoming. So I do still think Boise is going to come in and beat them by margin here, but I'm not going to actually play this game, although I may be playing a game that might involve one of these other teams that I just mentioned. We'll see. Boise, it's a second straight road game for them, though, which isn't the easiest. And then they do have San Diego State, UNLV, and Utah State all in a row up next. Those are all huge opponents, so maybe they won't be totally focused on Wyoming, though I do think that their bad performance against San Jose State should have them focused in this game. But then again, the Mountain West seems to also be the one conference where the home teams just seem to really, really do well, like better than expected. So I don't know. So I don't quite want to come in and do that, but let's talk about my actual plays. I actually have 4 plays, and they're all kind of like, basically you have situations where you have the market telling you one thing and the records telling you another thing. And I'm going to go with all of those discrepancies here in these games. And I think the situation's actually kind of set up for these games as well. And the market read looks good for them. So first game up is VCU. It is on my screen right now. Actually, I'm going to fade St. Bonaventure here, which seems dangerous. I'm actually laying 2 points on the road with VCU here. Bonaventure looks like they have 59% of tickets, 50% of the cash. So it looks like the public may be coming in on them. 3 of my plays, by the way, are all at 2 p.m. In the afternoon Eastern. So we will see how my college basketball day is going quite early on here. This is a game where St. Bonaventure, I mean, you look at them, they're sitting at a 12-1 record. And I know VCU has a pretty good record as well at 10-3. So these are both pretty good teams. But the public's going to look at this and probably think, wait a minute, Bonaventure has 1 loss and you're giving me points at home. So the public is going to perceive value on that side. But as I always say, the odds makers don't just hand money over, man. And Bonaventure, they faced a pretty easy schedule, man. I mean, they lost to Utah State, and they were pretty competitive in that game. So that was a good game for them. Utah State is quite good. But other than that, they really have not been tested much. I mean, they beat Providence. But like I said, I think Providence is a bit down. Other than that, they really have not stepped up in class here. So VCU is going to be one of the better teams that they're facing this season so far. They've had 9 or 10 days off or whatever this is here. And they went into that break on a long win streak, man, a 6-game win streak. When you're on a win streak like that, you do not want to have to go into a break, man, because it can really disrupt your momentum. So I think it might be disruptive to them. And VCU, on the other hand, they've faced a more difficult schedule. I mean, even though I know Seton Hall is down, I mean, it's still a Big East team that they lost to. I don't think that's a horrible loss. And I know Miami's down, but they still beat an ACC team. Colorado State's a little bit down, but they still beat a Mountain West team. They lost lost to Nevada only by 3. And then they lost to New Mexico by 7 on the road at the Pit, which is, especially for a VCU team like this, where that's one of the most difficult venues to play in, man, especially if you're not familiar with it. And they still played pretty well. So VCU, that was their worst, their largest loss was by 7 points to New Mexico. That was their largest loss margin there. And their other 2 games, they only lost by 3 points. So VCU has won most of their games, and they've been in basically every one of their other games. So I like that, although, of course, we're laying points with them this time. But I think that they're not going to really have a momentum-stopping break here, because they went into that break only with 1 win. So they lost to New Mexico, and then they bounced back with a win over a pretty bad William and Mary team, which William and Mary is a little brother to them in the state of Virginia, but still, I mean, William and Mary is just way worse than VCU. So now VCU is coming out of that break, going to St. Bonaventure. I think it's a better spot for VCU, man. I mean, I don't think that break's going to be as disruptive to them, because they didn't go in on a win streak. So I think that loss to New Mexico is actually kind of a positive for them. So I like VCU. They're a bit more of the battle-tested team here. The odds makers are telling you that they're enough of the better team, that they're laying points on the road here. KenPom also has them as the better team. We can look at what KenPom has slightly here. He's got them at 47th. I usually don't like to show KenPom, though, because some of these stats you do pay for it. He does have VCU as one of the least lucky teams as well, 334th. So he's telling you that VCU has underperformed so far as well. He's got them at 10th in the nation in defensive efficiency. They play pretty slow, which is fine because Bonaventure also, I think, kind of plays pretty slow. So this is not, that Shaka Smart VCU team anymore. He does have VCU as not having a very strong strength of schedule, but slightly stronger than Bonaventure's, which has been really weak. Bonaventure plays slow as well, so both teams like to play slow. He does have Bonaventure as one of the least lucky teams as well, so not a whole lot to gauge from that. But Bonaventure, they also do play good defense, and they don't score that well. But VCU, so basically it's a situation where it's like these teams are both really similar, but VCU is the better of the two teams. So give me that. Next up, St. Louis, Pick'em. I'm going to play St. Louis in this one, man. It's another one where it looks like the records are indicating something different than what the odds makers are telling you here. St. Louis has flipped from a 1-point dog to a favorite going through the Pick'em with juice now against Fordham. We don't really see the percentages yet, but I think the public may kind of come in on Fordham a little bit, even though St. Louis, they do have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, man. They got Robbie Avila, so he is one of the public favorite players there, man. So the public, maybe they don't even know that Avila is on this team, man. But St. Louis, I mean, they've faced a more difficult schedule, man. I don't think there's any way around that. I mean, as long as Avila is not hurt, but I better check just to make sure he isn't. Yeah, he played in their last game. Had a pretty good game in that game as well against a cupcake there against William WDS, whoever that is. William Wordsmith. No, I have no idea who that is. But St. Louis, you look at their schedule, man. I mean, it has not been easy for them. They face Santa Clara, Wichita State, San Francisco, Grand Canyon, even Wofford and Illinois State aren't really that bad. So they faced a lot of difficult teams. They don't have any great wins. I mean, that's for sure. And Robbie Avila actually missed some of these games. So I don't know which game he actually came back in. You can see actually maybe when he came back is probably around the Chicago State game. So they were without Avila for a bunch of it. He is now back. But again, I mean, they faced a fairly difficult schedule. I mean, these are a lot of pretty decent mid-major opponents here, but William Woods is actually who this team is. So the thing I like about this for St. Louis is that they went into the holiday break on 3 straight losses, but they played tough in all 3 of those games. They were very competitive in those games. But then I think what the good thing is they have a break after that. So having that break is good because then you get to rest up a little bit. You get to try to fix things that are going wrong. They did play coming out of the break, but they played that William Woods cupcake. So now I think what that game is going to do is it's just going to give them a little bit of confidence back. It's going to give them a little bit of momentum coming into this game. So I like that. So that breaks up that like losing momentum that they had. It gives you that confidence, but it doesn't make you overconfident because you know you were supposed to win that game. So that's going to just give them a boost going forward. So I like how this sets up for St. Louis in this one. And for Fordham, yeah, they played a couple of good teams as well. I mean, they beat Seton Hall, although we know Seton Hall's down a little bit. They lost badly to San Francisco, badly to Penn State. Penn State is definitely a good opponent too. So neither of these teams have really faced what I would consider to be that weak a schedule. And they lost to St. John's as well. St. John's, Penn State, those are the 2 best teams that they played. And those teams absolutely drilled Fordham. And Fordham actually did worse against San Francisco too. They lost by 21 on a neutral, whereas St. Louis lost at San Francisco in a true road game, I think only by 17. So if you want to look at the common opponent there, St. Louis performed better against San Francisco than Fordham did. I think St. Louis is the better team, as the odds makers are telling you. I think Ken Palm will also tell you that. Fordham, I mean, yeah, again, like Seton Hall is a little bit down. St. John's is a good team, but they got absolutely blasted by them. And here's the other thing. Fordham has not played, still, they have not played since before the holiday break, and they went into the holiday break winning 4 games in a row, 5 games in a row. So I think that's not good, man. And I think when you're winning like that, again, like I said, you don't want to go into that break and lose your momentum. And I think that could be the case there. St. Louis already had kind of like a tune-up and played out of the break, whereas I think Fordham might come into this game rusty, man. So I don't like it. And Fordham does also have St. Bonaventure, VCU, and Davidson all up next. So I don't know if that's going to be reason to look ahead. I don't know if they're going to overlook St. Louis because St. Louis doesn't have a very good record. I mean, both of these teams do have similar records, But again, I mean, those three teams that are upcoming for Fordham all have very, very good records. So I don't like how this sets up for Fordham. I like St. Louis in this game. Give me the Billikens. St. Louis, baby. Let's go with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, my man. Robbie Avila here in this one. And then if we look at Ken Palm real quick, he does have St. Louis. He has them ranked 150. I mean, he's got them at a pretty slow tempo. He's got them at 188th in strength of schedule. So, not a whole lot to see there. And then he's got Fordham. Fordham actually does play a fast tempo. So that's the one thing that may throw St. Louis off a little bit. So that's the one thing that worries me a little bit, is that Fordham will be able to speed this game up a little bit. But other than that, I'm not too worried. He's got Fordham as having faced a significantly weaker schedule, actually, surprisingly, than St. Louis has. He's got St. Louis as the better team. Fordham really kind of struggles offensively, and he's got Fordham at 33rd in the nation in luck. So he's saying that Fordham, based on their statistics, is really overperformed, whereas St. Louis is actually 262nd in luck. So he's saying they've pretty much underperformed. So give me St. Louis in that one. And he has that game probably as a 1-point game, one way or the other. I'm not sure, but yep, VCU and St. Louis. That is right. Jeffrey, I apologize for spacing it out so much, but hopefully the info that I'm giving you on the games that I'm not picking hopefully it's all good info, man. Yeah, let's go, baby. I've got two more college basketball plays. The next one is Duquesne. I played on Duquesne once already because it's a situation where I think Duquesne is very under the radar right now. Their record is still really, really ugly. They're playing Rhode Island here, and it looks like the money is all coming in on Duquesne. I didn't get the best number on this. It looks like it was 3.5 at some point, but I took the 2.5. It's down to 2, 52% of tickets on Rhode Island. If the public's looking at this, they're only going to come in on Rhode Island here, man. I think Rhode Island is a one-loss team, and Duquesne is below 500. So who the hell in their right mind is going to take Duquesne? I know I said that about the Raptors the other day, and I got my ass kicked. But this is a different situation. This is conference home opener. Duquesne's got 78% of the cash coming in on them, so it looks like the money is coming in on Duquesne. You look at this game, man, and this looks like what are you doing, Toad? Rhode Island 11-1, Duquesne 5-8. I know, but Duquesne, they have not had it easy, man. I mean, they faced some pretty decent mid-major teams mixed in here. Lipscomb is not bad. Princeton, not bad. DePaul, a Big East team who actually hasn't been playing that badly so far. South Dakota State's not that bad. I don't even think Milwaukee is that bad. St. Peter's, I don't know how good St. Peter's is. I mean, so, yeah, I mean, Duquesne, they don't have any, totally impressive. Well, I don't know if I should say that, though, because Duquesne, really, most of their games have been against somewhat difficult teams, and they beat Towson, and they beat UC Irvine, man. So UC Irvine is actually a really good team. They're still, the best team in the Big West. Again, Irvine, very good team, and Duquesne beat them at home by 16 points. So this Duquesne team is really not that bad. And now they get URI here. Now, Duquesne, I know they're on a win streak, but here's the thing. They went into the break on the win streak, beating UC Irvine. So that was a crazy way to go into the break. But then they came out of the break, and they still didn't even suffer from having their momentum stop. They faced Cleary, who's not a Division I team. So that's basically just going to serve as a tune-up. And I think what that's going to do is that's a stepping stone momentum-wise, because they went into that break on a huge win, their biggest win of the year against Irvine. Came out of that, got to play a game out of the break, got to keep their momentum going, basically, or gain some new momentum by beating Cleary. And now that I think that's going to propel them into this game, which is going to be their conference opener at home here against Rhode Island, which, I mean, nobody's going to overlook Rhode Island in the A10 right now with the fact they've only lost one game. So I like this. I think Duquesne has faced a more difficult schedule as well. I like how this sets up for Duquesne, but for Rhode Island, I like how it sets up to fade Rhode Island too, because they haven't played still since before the break, and they went into the break they were still with some huge momentum here, man. I mean, they went into the break after an 11-1 start to the season. They had 2 more wins after they lost to Brown in double overtime, which was their only loss. Although, by the way, their only loss is their only true road game, and this is their next true road game. And that game was only in the state of Rhode Island. So, yeah, Rhode Island, they have not faced a true road game outside of the state of Rhode Island yet. And they lost the one in Rhode Island. Although I know Brown was going to really step it up against Rhode Island, which I pointed that out. I liked the Brown side, and that when Brown beat them in double overtime. Brown, they're like the little brother in the state of Rhode Island. So you knew they were going to step it up in that game. But Rhode Island has faced a weaker schedule, man, even though I know they crushed Charleston. Charleston's pretty good. Yale is pretty good. Providence, Big East team, although they're a little bit down. But I do think Rhode Island has faced a weaker schedule. And the way this sets up, again, I think they may be rusty coming out of the break here. They've been off for like 9-10 days, whatever it is. I don't like it. And they do have George Mason and George Washington up next. The double Georgia's up next. And those teams have way better records than Duquesne right now. So even though this is a conference opener, I think they might not take Duquesne totally seriously based on their records here. The other thing I really like about this is that Rhode Island likes to play really fast. So we know Rhode Island is the better team. I mean, they're laying points on the road, but Rhode Island is 20th in tempo. And by the way, Ken Baum has them at 59th in luck. So he has Rhode Island way overperforming right now. And he has them at 318th in strength of schedule. So that's not a very good indicator there. Duquesne, on the other hand, by the way, he's got them at 358th in luck. So he has them bottom 7 in luck in the entire country. So he has them underperforming basically as much as anybody in the country. He has them at 234th in strength of schedule, which isn't great either, but it's still stronger than what Rhode Island's is. And then you got Duquesne 327th in tempo. So Duquesne plays ridiculously slow. I saw them play last year, and they play frustratingly slow. And if you're a team like Rhode Island who wants to play really fast, Rhode Island is in the top 30 in tempo in the entire nation, and you have to go and play a team that's in the bottom 30 in tempo. I don't think that's good, man. That's a tempo collision. I think Duquesne, if they can get this game really slow, which is the way they want it, and usually a home team can control the pace, especially if they're the slower pace team. It's a lot easier to slow the pace down because you just kind of hold on to the ball and have long possessions. Duquesne can get this into a half-court game and really throw Rhode Island out of the type of game they want. Could be a very frustrating game for Rhode Island in this one. We don't even need Duquesne to win. We only need them to come within a bucket here, although you're almost saying that they should win the game here. Hopefully they do. And Duquesne, what was the other game? I'm trying to remember now because I played on Duquesne in one game this year, and it was a win for me. I think it was this game against Old Dominion because I was looking at this and Duquesne hadn't even won a game yet. And I'm like, man, I don't remember what the situation was, but yeah, it wasn't that game. What game? I don't remember, man. Yeah, it was either that or it was this game against, no, it might have been the Towson game. I don't even remember, man. Whatever the game was, I was looking at it. I was like, man, Duquesne, like their record is just totally misleading right now. And I still think that's the case. Give me Duquesne plus the points. Slow it down like Iowa yesterday. I didn't see what Iowa in football. Iowa should have won that game, man. And they were winning by 10, I think in the fourth quarter in that game, or maybe in the third quarter. Kind of bullshit in that game. I like this is different though. This is not football. So football, Iowa's a really good defensive and rushing attack football team. This is basketball. So we're talking about pacing in basketball where we're talking about like the length of possessions. I mean, I guess it's a little bit similar. I would say it's more similar to what the LA Chargers do because the LA Chargers have the longest possessions possible. Jim Harbaugh runs like the clock all the way down and whatever. So I think it's more similar to that. And the last play is Nevada minus 3.5. And I know I'm not playing the best number on this. This has moved up a little bit from, well, it was 1.5 heavily juiced. So it was basically 2 up to 3.5. Now you want to get something probably better than the 4 at the very least. Get them lower than 2 buckets at the very least here. They're hosting Utah State. This is probably going to be one of the better games on the slate today. 66% of tickets on Nevada, 92% of the cash, though. So it looks like the legitimate money is coming in on Nevada. And I think it's one of those situations where the records are a little bit misleading. I'm not even sure the public is actually going to be coming in on Nevada because Utah State's 12-1 and they're undefeated in conference so far. 2-0. Nevada's 0-2 in conference and 8-5. So what public bettor is going to come in and look at this and be like, oh yeah, I want to lay points with Nevada here? Yeah, well, I'm going to do it, but I don't think that the public is really going to be very enticed by this. Utah State, I don't like how this sets up for Utah State, man. I mean, look at the games that they're coming off of. I know Nevada's also a big game, but they're sitting at 8-5, so I don't think it's as big a game as these last two. They went into the break beating St. Mary's, which was a huge win, really. St. Mary's, quite a good team. Then they came out of the break, even though they went into that break on a high note, but they came out of the break And I actually mentioned I liked Utah State in this game to cover the number against San Diego State coming out of the break. And Utah State won on the road at San Diego State, who's probably basically still the top dog in the Mountain West, man. These teams all consider them to be the team that you really want to take down in the Mountain West. That's a huge win for Utah State. And that was 3 days ago. Now they have a second straight road game. They have to go up into Nevada. I don't think it looks very good, man. Going up from San Diego to Reno off of your biggest win of the season, basically. I don't like it at all for Utah State here. Nevada, flying a little bit under the radar. Even Ken Baum will tell you Nevada's not actually the better of these two teams, but I think it is close, and the home court advantage looms large in games like this. I think you give teams like 4.5 almost for home court in college basketball in the Mountain West Conference. And Nevada, I think they're in a perfect bounce back spot here, man. Their 2 losses have been ugly. So you had Utah State had a huge win going into the holiday break and then a huge win coming out of it. Nevada had 2 ugly losses. They went into a home loss to Colorado State. I don't know what that was going into the break. And then they came out of the holiday break and they didn't even play well. After going into the break on a negative, they came out of the break and they lost to Wyoming, which is the game I mentioned. And what the hell is that? They went in, Wyoming shot like ridiculously from 3-point range, as I mentioned. So, I mean, we're probably not going to see Nevada have another opponent shoot like 50% from 3 or whatever against them here. So I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, they just went into Wyoming and lost again. They're still looking for their first conference win. They have a couple of road games coming up after this, so they need to win this game at home, man. They got to finally get their first conference win. It's Utah State coming in, who has one of the best records in the conference. I think Nevada is going to be totally ready for it. They're going to be really angry and in a bounce back spot after that horrible loss to Wyoming. Utah State's coming off their biggest win of the season, man. So you got one team in a letdown spot, the other team in a big bounce back spot. Nevada is the right side in this game, man, regardless of what the result is. That's my opinion there. Give me Nevada. So those are the 4 plays in college basketball. Yeah. Bring a bucket and a mucket and a bop, a bucket and a mop. We're getting wet here, man. Let's go to NHL. I mean, we have a huge NHL slate here, man. I don't know how many of these games I want to talk about, but I don't like the spot that my Bruins are in because they beat Washington a few games ago. Now they're going to Washington. So it's a quick revenge spot for Washington. So probably would only look to the Washington side. They're up from -135 to -150, 87% of tickets, 92% of the cash. So I would only look to that side there. Montreal, I think, is in a pretty bad spot, to be honest. They're coming off of a couple of huge wins, I think. Let me see. Where's Montreal at? They've been playing some pretty good hockey recently, man, and they're almost at 500, but look at what they just did. They just beat Florida, shut them out, and they beat Tampa Bay in back-to-back days. Now they have to go from the East Coast to Vegas with 1 day off, and they're playing a 3rd game in 4 days, all in different cities. Good luck with that. Even though I do think they're still going to probably try to show up, but like, how much are they going to have left in the tank? I'm not playing this game, but if I were to play it, I would lay the puck line, with Vegas to win by margin in this one. That's how I would do it. Vegas, they're on a huge win streak right now, so they do have momentum. They're coming off some easy wins, so I really think they just have momentum continuing coming into this game. So I lean to Vegas in this one, but they're down from -245 to -231. Very surprising to me. 69% of the tickets and only 50% of the cash. I don't agree with the market read in that one and where that number's going. I would only look to Vegas in that one. What else we got? And then for some reason, again, just like yesterday, I mentioned Nashville. The market is heavily indicating on Nashville again. They're on a back-to-back now, and the market was indicating on them yesterday, and they got shut out anyway, I think, by Winnipeg. So, like, how can you trust these market reads on Nashville right now? Even though I think I've won a couple of plays on Nashville this year. I mean, this market looks like heavily indicating on Nashville here, but there's no way I'm going to do it. They're playing a back-to-back, too, coming off that Winnipeg game, even though they did get shut out. I don't want any part of this. Minnesota down from -160 to -135, 86% of the tickets, 68% of the cash on Nashville. I don't really see any reason why this is a particularly bad spot for Minnesota. They just lost to Ottawa and they're staying at home. So to me, it kind of looks like a spot where they're probably going to kind of show up. So I don't get it at all. I don't understand this market read at all. Or if it's like just numbers guys are coming in and still saying, well, Nashville's not as bad as they look. Okay. I mean, you saw what they did yesterday. So unless it's a good spot to play them, I'm not going to do it. So no, thank you. And then we got Carolina Columbus. This game is kind of interesting, I guess, because Carolina, I mean, they are coming off beating New Jersey. So that's a pretty big win. So actually, this is one of my plays. What am I talking about? All right, let's talk about one of my plays then. Whoops. I'm actually making a play in this one. Carolina, I mean, they're coming off a big win over New Jersey, where they played New Jersey in back-to-back games, lost the first game, won the second game. Now they have to travel out to Columbus. Or I know I usually say first game of a road trip, you tend to be focused. But are they really going to be focused when they just beat New Jersey, which is a huge divisional win? And then up next, they got Florida and then Minnesota. I mean, I don't really think so. And they just lost to Florida badly 2 games in a row. Florida are the returning champs. I think their sights are really going to be set on Florida here. I don't think they're going to pay attention to Columbus. And they just beat Columbus on December 15th, 4-1. So I don't see any reason that Carolina is going to really have focus in this game. I like Columbus in this game. Columbus is coming off an ugly loss to my Bruins, where the Bruins finally got double revenge against them. They have a couple of days off, and they're returning home from just that one game out in Boston. So I think this is going to be a spot where they're going to show up. I mean, it's Carolina who just beat them on the road. They're coming into their place. So I like how this sets up. But the way I'm going to play this, because they are a huge underdog, Carolina's down from -225 to -212, though. So the market looks like it is strongly indicating on Columbus, and I do agree with this one, obviously. 57% of tickets on Carolina, 82% of the cash on Columbus. The way I'm going to play this is a split bet on the Columbus BJs. Half of the bet on the +1.5 puck line at -135, so to get them to come within 1 goal. And if they hit that part of it, at least it won't be a loss. It'll be a slight win, I think. And then half the bet is on the +192 money line. So hopefully they win outright and the whole thing just scoop the pot on that one. But the way that I play it, sometimes I do a split bet like that, and then you're kind of mitigating your risk a little bit. But then, of course, if Columbus loses by 1, you'll just have a slight win out of it, which I'll take. I mean, it's because less risk, you get a little bit less reward if that's the case, but I'm going to take it. So I like Columbus in that one. Carolina's goaltenders are hurt too. That's also a decent point, Mark. I don't even know. Yeah, I mean, I think Anderson has been out for a while now. I don't even know who's playing in net for them. So that is also, you have to downgrade Columbus a little, Carolina for that reason as well. I mean, Anderson has been out for a while. I don't know. Is Kochetkov hurt now too? Because he's been playing. He was their primary goaltender after Anderson went down. He was playing for a while, and then I don't know. They've had so many different goaltenders, man. So I don't know who it's going to be in this game. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, Kochetkov is probably their second best goaltender to Anderson, but Anderson, I think, has been out for like the whole year. So we'll see how that goes. And then New Jersey, they're at Anaheim. This is a weird one. Remember, I like the New Jersey side in this one. If I was going to play this one, I would lay the puck line, even though it's on the road. I would lay -1.5 or whatever with New Jersey here. But they keep going up because the public is on New Jersey too. But I think the money is actually coming in on their side as well, up from -240 to -271. 80% of tickets, 90% of the cash. I agree with the New Jersey side in this one. I got to bring my schedule back up here. New Jersey, I mean, yeah, they lost to Carolina. I know both of those games were big, but they did lose pretty badly to Carolina there. Now, a couple days off, and now they go out to the Pacific Coast, which is almost going to be like starting a new road trip, at least in my opinion, even though I know they do have Los Angeles up next, which is a bigger game. But I don't really think they're going to overlook Anaheim here because they are coming off a loss. So I think they're probably going to kind of want to get this game, although, again, it is a back-to-back. So I do have some hesitations here, and maybe they'll actually have more focus on tomorrow's game against the Kings because they are the bigger opponent. I don't know, but I think Anaheim is also, they're in a particularly bad spot because they just beat Edmonton. That's a huge win for them, man. So 2 days ago, they beat Edmonton. So I think they're in a bit of a letdown spot, even though New Jersey is a big team, a good team coming to their place. They do have Winnipeg and Edmonton up next, which are bigger in-conference games. They go on the road to play them. I'm not going to say they're going to overlook New Jersey, though, because New Jersey's been playing really well as well. So I'm just not going to play it, but it does look like Anaheim could be in a spot where they might run out of gas a little bit after a big win, big opponent that they just played against Edmonton there. Martin is probably going to be in that. All right. So yeah, you do have to downgrade Columbus for that reason, or Carolina, excuse me. I keep saying Columbus. the two C's. You do have to downgrade Carolina for that reason as well. Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you there. And then my other game, yeah, let's play the San Jose Sharks in this game against Philadelphia. I'm pissed at them, so I'm going to take out my vengeance on them for blowing that game for me against the Kings. But I think it's the right spot to fade the Flyers. I mean, the Flyers aren't even that good. I know San Jose isn't very good, and they've been mired in a very bad loss streak right now. But you know me, I played Buffalo to break the longest loss streak of the season for any team. They lost 12 in a row or something. And not only did they win, but they haven't lost since then. They've won 3 in a row. So, hey, maybe I am the whatever you want to call it. I'm like the loss streak breaker here, man. And maybe it'll break it for San Jose, but I don't like the spot for Philadelphia. I don't think they should be laying a price like this really against anybody, even if it is San Jose. I don't think Philadelphia is that good. They're down from minus 170 to minus 166 on the road. 74% of tickets, 59% of cash. So the public is on Philadelphia. They don't want any part of San Jose. The line is moving in the San Jose direction. And like I said, I think the spot's just bad for Philadelphia, man, because they put in that huge effort. They should have won the game for me. It was a good spot for them. It was a good spot to play them against the Kings, man. It was a bad spot for the Kings because the Kings were coming off a win over Edmonton, and they had that game against New Jersey coming up tomorrow. So they were in a sandwich spot, man, and Philadelphia should have won this game. They were winning 4-2 pretty late in this game, and they completely imploded, blew it, and then lost still in regulation. If you're Philadelphia, how do you bounce back from that, man? That was a huge effort game. And now you're playing a third game in 4 days, all on the road, all on the Pacific Coast, and you have Vegas up next and then Toronto. Those are much bigger opponents too. And you're facing the San Jose team that hasn't been able to beat anybody. I don't think Philadelphia is going to be totally focused on San Jose here, man. And San Jose, also, by the way, San Jose lost at Philadelphia. That was a shootout. I think I won on the over in that one all the way back on November 11th. So San Jose has lost to Philadelphia this year. I think that was the only time they played. So we do have one game between them, and Philadelphia beat them. So that might cause Philadelphia to overlook them even more. For San Jose, they've lost. They were actually playing a little bit better. And then since then, they've only won one game in the month of December, 2 games in the month of December, one since December 3rd. I think San Jose is going to try to win. I mean, they're going to be trying to win any game that they can, man. And they're dealing with, they got new goaltenders here. I don't know who their goaltender is going to be here, but they got Georgiev over from Colorado. I mean, I don't know who's going to be in net for them in this game, but we will see. But San Jose, man, I think that having a couple of extra days off here, they're mired in a loss streak here. I think it's going to help them refocus. Having a couple of days off, they're in a much better rest spot. They're not traveling anywhere. Much better travel spot. I think we're going to get focus out of San Jose here, man. I don't know what else to say about that, but they've lost so many games in a row now, and this looks like the spot where they may actually be able to break that loss streak. They've lost whatever it is, 6-7 games in a row. So give me the San Jose Sharks in that one for all those reasons. Move over to NBA. I think the NBA card is a little bit light today, thankfully, because I don't want to have to handicap so many games here. Toronto's at Boston, my Boston Celtics. I mean, the Celtics lost another game as a double-digit favorite. I mean, what else can I say about that? Does that mean the Celtics are going to finally be in a bounce-back spot? Maybe. Maybe they'll come out and blow Toronto out of the building, but I don't want to bank on it this time, so I'm not going to lay the 16.5 or whatever with Boston in that one. I'm going to stay away. Minnesota at Oklahoma City is a big game, man, and I actually kind of like the Minnesota side in this one because I still think they're kind of under the radar because their record isn't that good. We just see the Thunder down from 7.5 to 6.5 with 66% of the tickets on them, though. And the public is actually coming in on the T-Wolves, it looks like, to the tune of 76%. So maybe the public does still consider Minnesota to be a good team. But, man, I'm kind of surprised by that because if you look at their records, the Thunder have the way better record. They've been very good at home. I mean, I'm not going to play this game, but to me, it looks like a situation where Minnesota might actually be able to catch the Thunder here. I mean, the Thunder are coming up blowing out Memphis, so they're probably feeling pretty good off of that win, man. And then I don't know who do the Thunder have next. I don't even know. I handicapped this game earlier, but they got the Clippers. I don't know if that matters that much. In Minnesota, they're coming off a game where they barely scraped by San Antonio, and I said that was a bad spot because they were coming off the big Christmas win over Dallas. They beat Houston as well in Texas. I played San Antonio. San Antonio almost beat them. So I think, and it was a sandwich spot because Minnesota had this game up next too. So I think Minnesota should bring focus in this game. It looks like a spot where they are going to be focused. Both teams are probably going to be focused though. So what can you do about that? I don't know what to do about that one, but I'll stay away. The line in this Suns Grizzlies game is weird to me. Suns down from 7 to 4.5, but like, I don't understand why this line is moved like this because the major injury that we have in this game is on the Grizzlies side. Morant is out. Morant got hurt, I think, 2 games ago, and he missed the Grizzlies last game, and they still got blown out by the Thunder in that game. So the injured player theory didn't come into play in that one. So I don't really understand this line here. It looks quite low to me, down from -7 to -4.5 on the Suns. 90% of tickets, 88% of cash. So the Suns are very public. So the market does seem to be indicating on the Grizzlies, but I don't want to touch this game. I can't really explain why the line has moved that much. I don't really see how that would all be just market movement alone in a daily sport like the NBA. So I don't understand it. Maybe that line wasn't actually the opener. I mean, we'll see what did ESPN bet have as the opener? Yeah, they had 7.5. So I just don't get it. I mean, looking at the injuries, like that almost makes it look like Durant isn't playing or something, but it's because Devin Booker. There we go. That's why. Devin Booker is a game time decision. So it seems like the line is probably indicating that Booker is going to be out. So that's why we're getting the line looking like that. So I'm not going to touch this game. A lot of uncertainty in that game. I don't want any part of it. And then the Cavs are up from 3 to 5 on the road at the Lakers, despite being on a back-to-back now and blowing out the Warriors last night and beating me on a back-to-back. They're still taking the money. 62% of the cash coming in on them. The line moving up to 5. 70% of tickets over on the Lakers. I don't think I want to agree with what the market is indicating on that one either, man. I'm just going to pass, but man, I don't like it at all. Cleveland on a back-to-back like that. I don't think the Lakers are that good, though. So, I mean, the Lakers are coming off sweeping Sacramento after beating Golden State, a game where I thought it was a good spot to take Sacramento. I don't know what's going on there, but the Lakers, they're at least the more rested team, and they're just staying at home. So, to me, it looks like they're in the somewhat better spot there. I'm not going to do it, but my one NBA play is the Milwaukee Bucks, -1.5. Give me this one. I mean, the Pacers are actually drawing the public action in this game, which looks insane to me. The Bucks are definitely the better team. Bucks have flipped from a 1-point dog to a 1.5-point favorite. I think the best you can do is the 1.5. But I mean, if you're playing them, basically just win the game anyway. I think it's fine. Maybe money line is fine as well. You have to pay a little bit more for that. 84% of tickets, 66% of the cash on the Pacers. I don't understand this at all. And I don't know if it's just total recency bias or what, but like looking at these records, the Pacers are below 500. Milwaukee, I'm pretty sure, is above, although not by much, I guess. But I think Milwaukee is a lot better than the record indicates. I mean, they've had a lot of injuries going on in some of these games. And today, I mean, we got game time decisions on Giannis and Middleton. They seem to always be game time decisions, man. It seems like with the market lining Milwaukee like this, it seems like those guys are probably going to play in this game, I would have to imagine. And this is just a bad spot for the Pacers, man. So the odds makers are telling you Milwaukee is enough of the better team that they're laying points on the road. But what are the Pacers coming off of? They just went into Boston and beat Boston for the second time this season, I think. So it wasn't playoff revenge anymore because they had beat Boston once already, but that's still a huge win. I mean, you beat the Boston Celtics. Now you're coming off that huge upset win, and you get the Bucks. Although I know this game is also not playoff revenge for the Bucks anymore because the Bucks are the team that got eliminated by the Pacers last year, and the Bucks did already beat the Pacers on the road this year. So does that mean it's going to be in-season revenge for the Pacers? I don't know if I really see it. I don't think that's going to weigh that heavily into this. Pacers lost at Milwaukee on November 22nd. I think that's kind of whatever. I don't think that matters that much. It's just, this comes down to the Pacers are coming off a huge win over Boston, man. Major upset win, whereas the Bucks, they're coming off a couple of ugly losses to the Brooklyn Nets and the Chicago Bulls. And now they have multiple days off. They have extra rest here coming into this. And yeah, I know they have revenge against Brooklyn, but who cares about Brooklyn, man? I mean, this Milwaukee team, I think they're going to be in an angry mood right now, man. Those are really bad losses to Brooklyn and Chicago. they're going to want to step it back up here. So this is, I think there's recency bias going on in the market here. Milwaukee is the better team. They should win this game, especially in a spot like this where they're in a spot where I really think they are going to be totally focused after a couple of horrible losses. Pacers' focus is going to be in question after a huge win over the Celtics. Give me the Bucks. You like plus 1.5 on San Jose. Oh, you automatically play the plus 1.5 puck line. You think they're tanking? I don't know. But the fact that they always lose by 1, I mean, that's pretty good. Yeah, playing the puck line. But there's such a small underdog in that one. I'm not actually doing it. I'm going to go money line on that one. Celebrini goal prop. I don't know a whole lot about hockey props, man. I don't know a whole lot about the hockey personnel, to be honest. But maybe you'll be celebrating Celebrini in that one. Celebrini and Michkov, yeah. San Jose has the better goaltending. Yeah, I mean, San Jose, I think they got 2 of Colorado's goalies, right? They got Georgiev and Wedgwood, I think, or is it Blackwood? Whichever wood they got, I don't know. But they got a couple of new goalies over there. San Jose, they've had like a carousel of goalies. I don't know. All right. Whoops. Let's go to, I forgot, college football, bowls, and playoffs. Hopefully I can get this done quickly before I get out of here because we got games that are up at noon. The first game up is the ReliaQuest Bowl, which is Alabama and Michigan in Raymond James Stadium in Tampa Bay, Florida. I mean, as far as the location, I don't think this is really much of a locational edge one way or the other, but the story of this game is that Michigan does have a lot of opt-outs in this game. You've seen Alabama go way up from 11 to 16.5 now. This is crazy. Bordering on 17, 69% of tickets, 71% of the cash. This almost looks like that Georgia, Florida State, not Georgia, Florida line or Florida, Georgia line, but Georgia versus Florida State last year where Florida State had all those guys leave last year. And Georgia was like the disappointed team, the first team left out of the playoff, and they came and they showed up anyway. And to me, it looks like that's going to be the case here with Alabama, but I don't want to actually put my money on this, but Alabama, I mean, you could have gotten a better number on Alabama, but of course, the line has moved this much because they're getting a lot of opt-outs on the Michigan side. Look at all these opt-outs on the Michigan side. One of their best defenders is not going to be there. I'm aware of that. Orgy has hit the transfer portal, but Orgy hasn't been their quarterback for a while now. So Michigan, whoever the quarterback has been the last few weeks is still going to be in their quarterback for them, but still they have a lot of opt-outs, a lot of transfer portal. A lot of a transfer portal situation here. So they got numerous guys who are not going to be playing in this game. A lot of guys are ditching. Alabama actually really does not have a lot of guys skipping this game. So Alabama is going to have a much more intact team here in this game. And I think Alabama may actually be coming into this game with something to prove. So even though you might say on the one hand, this is going to be a disappointed team, the team that just missed the playoff. But on the other hand, they're probably like, hey, you just saw SMU suck ass against Penn State. Well, we are the team that deserves to be in. So the way that you prove that you're the team that deserves to be in, you can go into your bowl and kick Michigan's ass. So I think Alabama might actually want to do that. And they actually have a little extra motivation here because remember what happened in the playoffs last year. Michigan eliminated Alabama last year. I was on that game. I won on Michigan in that game last year. So Alabama gets a chance at playoff revenge for last year as well. Michigan was the team that ended their season last year. So I think that's an added reason why Alabama is going to show up in this game as well. So my initial thought on this was, Alabama is going to be a very disappointed team being left out of the playoff. They're not going to care about the ReliaQuest Bowl. Let's go against them. And now I don't think that that's the case here. This looks like a game where Michigan is actually the team that doesn't give a shit about this game and they're all ditching the game. So Alabama, I mean, they're the team that's going to show up, but their line is such a heavy favorite. I don't want to come in and play this game one way or the other. The next game up is the Sun Bowl, which is the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl now, I think is what it is. It's great. No, it is not great, actually. Dude, they should do what the Pop-Tart Bowl does, though, and they should have they should have anthropomorphic frosted flakes come out and you get to eat a bowl of them if you win or something. I don't know. Maybe the winning coach gets a bowl of frosted flakes milk dumped on them or something. Come on, man. Let's up the stakes here. This is Louisville and Washington. We've seen some movement on this game where Louisville, it looks like Washington was actually a 6.5 point favorite at one point, which is probably the opening line when it was a line like both teams are going to have all their starters play. Then the line went all the way to Louisville being a favorite, and Louisville was sitting at like a 1 or 2 point favorite for almost the entire time the line was out. And now it's moving back to Washington. 59% of tickets, 75% of the cash on Washington. Washington's back to a 1.5 point favorite. And I would only look to the Washington side in this one. I don't think Washington, even though I know they were in the championship game last year, but I don't think Washington, I mean, they have totally different personnel this year. So I don't think they had any like really high aspirations this year. So I think, to me, it looks like they probably are going to actually want to try to win this game. Whereas Louisville, maybe not, man, because Louisville, they were kind of in the hunt for the ACC for a while. And it seems like they might have a little bit more questionable motivation. If you look at the opt-outs here in this game, yeah, I mean, there's a lot on both sides. So this is kind of tough, difficult to read, a lot of opt-outs, but I think the opt-outs for Washington are kind of less key players than what we get on Louisville's side. And the really key opt-out is Tyler Shaw for Louisville. He's their quarterback. He was their quarterback all year, and he's the guy that runs their offense, man. They have a very timing-based offense, a very passing-heavy offense. So if Shaw is not playing in this game because he's getting ready for the NFL draft, you got to downgrade Louisville quite a bit for that. So I don't like that. I don't know who the quarterback is going to be for Louisville in this game, but that is a big downgrade. If the quarterback that played literally the entire season and ran their entire offense, and their offense was very heavily reliant on him, if he's not going to be there, that's not good for Louisville. So that's kind of the main thing that's going on in this game. So I lean Washington in that game. I'm not going to put my money on this, but I mean, that is the keyest opt out there. But Washington does have a lot of players not playing in this game as well. And I think that's probably why the line hasn't really gone all the way back to, actually, Washington was a 6.5 point underdog. Excuse me. I misspoke on that. So Louisville actually came out as a 6.5, 7 point favorite. So maybe the line actually dropped to Louisville -1 because of the Shaw opt-out. That was probably what did it. That was probably what dropped it to like the 2 or the 1. And now since then, it's actually moved slightly more to the Washington side, even though we do see some opt-outs on the Washington side too. So it's not going to be a very good football game, in my opinion, in this one, but we will see. And the total finally drops because I don't think it had dropped for a while. It's down from 53 to 50.5 now. 87% of tickets and cash both on the over. But with Shaw not there for Louisville, Louisville might kind of struggle to score. And Washington, they're good defensively. They're pretty good defensively, but they also have a lot of guys, it looks like, skipping the game on the defensive side. So I don't know what to think about that. The next game up is the Citrus Bowl, which is at Camping World Stadium. Hopefully they got all the Pop-Tarts. My Boston Toads coming back here. This is the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. I think Cheez-It used to sponsor a different bowl. Now it's the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. Cheez-It mixed with citrus doesn't sound like a good combination to me, man. Let's get that orange cheese. But this game, this is at Camping World Stadium in Orlando. So again, debatably, I guess it's a slight locational edge for South Carolina because they're in the South, but I don't know about that. Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, by the way, is in El Paso, Texas at UTEP's Stadium, I believe. So not a locational edge for one team or the other in that one either. The Citrus Bowl here, it's in Florida. I mean, you got to kind of look at this one and see, like, is either team going to kind of like not take this game seriously because it's in Orlando? You get to go down to Florida and kind of party during the winter and the warm weather there. I don't know. The line looks like it is indicating to take the points with Illinois, though. It opened South Carolina 12, and then it was sitting at 10 for a long time, and now it's down to 8.5. South Carolina is public with 74% of tickets, 66% of the cash. So a little bit less of the public than the tickets. A little bit less of the cash than the tickets on South Carolina. So it looks like reverse line movement against a public South Carolina team. Coming in on the Illinois side here, and the over has 82% of tickets, 64% of the cash, with the total going up from 48 to 50. I don't know if it's going to hit that key number of 51, but if it does, I think the under might actually make sense in this game because you're looking at South Carolina. They got an SEC defense, pretty decent defense. In Illinois, I don't know, man. I think sometimes they struggle to score, and they actually don't play that poorly defensively. So I think you could see maybe an under type of game in this one. Maybe kind of a slower pace game. This is number 15, South Carolina, number 20, Illinois, by the way. South Carolina, I don't know if they're going to be disappointed or not, man, because they were, I don't think they really thought they had a legitimate chance of making the playoff, but they kind of had an outside chance to maybe get into the playoff. And they beat Clemson in their last game, which is a huge game. I mean, that was like their season their best game of the season, basically beating their rival Clemson. They beat a playoff team as well in Clemson. That was a huge win for South Carolina. And now they go to Florida and they get to play Illinois. And I've been making fun of Illinois all year. I really think Illinois has been overrated all year. But Illinois, I mean, they do have Brett Bielema there. I mean, he's definitely a coach that has bowl experience at the very least. So I don't know what to think about this. This game is a very difficult read for me. I would maybe lean to taking the points with Illinois in this one, even though I hate Illinois as far as I think they've been overrated all year. But South Carolina, they got a few opt-outs here, and I think their key opt-out I thought was actually that their running back wasn't going to play in this game, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Something you might have to check into with South Carolina in this game, but I thought that their running back was actually going to not be in this game, which is Sanders maybe was the one who wasn't going to play. I don't know, but Sellers, their quarterback, who's their best offensive player, is going to play in this game as far as I know. He's been looking really good this season, so they will have him. I think they're going to be missing one of their running backs, and they do have a pretty balanced offensive attack, so if they're missing some of their rushers, that's not really the greatest. And then they do have, it looks like a couple of wide receivers opting out as well. I don't know if those are wide receivers that are like totally relevant or not. It looks like maybe they're not. But Illinois actually doesn't have many opt-outs at all. It looks like they only, according to covers, they have 3 guys hitting the transfer portal here. So for the most part, both of these teams are going to be pretty much intact coming into this game, though. So it seems like both of these teams are kind of going to show up and try to win this game. Although, normally, if that was the case, I would be like, well, South Carolina is obviously the better team, and I would lean to that side. But in this case, I'm not so sure, man, because the market is heavily indicating against it. So there's no way I'm going to touch this game. But it looks like Illinois is going to have their full roster. South Carolina may have one like key offensive player missing, but other than that, it looks like the teams will mostly be intact there. So I think the under might make more sense in that game if you get both defenses showing up in that game. The game I'm actually going to play, even though I'm losing value on this, is Baylor -3.5. And I know we could add +2.5 on this. I was sitting close to a pick 'em. It was Baylor -1 for a long time, which would have been a lot better if you got lower than the field goal here. And I liked Baylor the entire time, so I'm mad at myself for not doing it. If you want to go in and lay the Baylor money line at like -160, I mean, that probably makes sense as well. You get them to just win the game, but you have to pay a price for it. I'm just going to be stupid and play a really stale number here. Well, not stale necessarily, but play a worse number and bank on Baylor trying to win this game, because this line moved partially because LSU has some guys not playing in this game. 53% of tickets, 66% of the cash on Baylor. This is in the Texas Bowl at RNG Stadium in Houston. This is at NRG, in Houston Energy. This is the Houston Texans Stadium. This is the Kinders Texas Bowl. Hopefully it's kind to me. I don't know who that company is, but Baylor, I think Baylor is going to be actually really pumped up for this game, man. I mean, they get to play LSU. They get to play a pretty good SEC team. And look at what Baylor did, man. They were sitting at 2-4 this season, and then they reeled off wins the entire rest of the way. They reeled off 6 straight wins. So this is a team, to me, it looks like they want to be in this bowl, man. When you see a team that finishes the season with 6 wins in a row like that, and they didn't really have any aspirations coming into the season, that tells me this team is focused. They're playing good football. I mean, obliterating Kansas in their last game, who actually started playing pretty well down the stretch, tells me something as well. Baylor, as far as the opt-outs, I think basically their entire team is going to play in this game, whereas LSU actually does have some guys that are not going to play in this game. So Baylor, it looks like they want to play in this game, and they get kind of a hometown crowd here because Baylor, I mean, they play in Waco. They're not very far from Houston. So Baylor, they're going to have the home, I think, edge here as well. Baylor, I don't know, when's the last time they won a bowl or last time they were in a bowl? I don't even know. I think it's been a while, man, for Baylor. They lost the Armed Forces Bowl 2 years ago to Air Force. I haven't looked at it. So the Sugar Bowl was the last time they won a bowl game, way back in 2021. So not that long ago, but to me, it's still, I think Baylor's going to be pumped up for this game. They're going to get a home crowd there. I mean, LSU does have a lot of fans that will travel, but Baylor, you know that when they just have to go basically down the road almost like whatever it is, 4 or 5 hour drive, you know Baylor's fans are going to show up for this game in Texas, whereas LSU looks like they might have a little bit more questionable motivation. They were a team that they were talking about playoffs from the get-go here, man. Playoffs, They're one of the like top 10 ranked teams in the country. They'd won. I mean, that loss to USC wasn't going to doom them. They were playing well up until this game in October against Texas A&M. That kind of hurt them. And then Alabama was the game that really ended their season. That was the dream crusher. Then they lost one more game. And yeah, I know they finished with 2 wins, but man, I just don't like it, man. I think LSU, they might not be totally they might not totally be happy to be in the Texas Bowl, man. After they started the season with much higher aspirations. I think Baylor is going to be much happier to be there, and that's kind of indicated by the fact that Baylor has basically no guys that are not going to play in this game, whereas LSU does have a few players who look like they aren't going to play in this game. So we'll see how that goes for LSU. But LSU, they also don't play very good defense, man. So I think Baylor is probably the better defensive team here as well. LSU really struggles defensively, even though I know they could score, but Baylor probably can also score with LSU, especially against LSU's defense. So I like Baylor in this one, man. And then Nussmeier, we'll have to see what his situation is, because I'm pretty sure he got injured in this game against Oklahoma, right? Because I played LSU in that game. It was a really bad spot for Oklahoma coming off that Alabama game. So Nussmeier got injured in that game. I don't know if he's back in this game or not. And if he is, he's going to be kind of working his way back from injury, and he hasn't played for a while. So that might be a little added question mark there for LSU. Give me Baylor, though. I mean, I'll just be stupid and lay the worst price on it. I like Baylor in that game. I think we're looking at a disappointed LSU team, man. I mean, that's the way that I handicap these bowls versus an excited Baylor team. I don't really see LSU being that excited to play in that game. And then we do have the first of the playoff game, the first of the quarterfinals round of the playoffs tonight in the Fiesta Bowl in Glendale, Arizona, which is Penn State and Boise State. Penn State, we know they're off of crushing SMU. SMU did make a lot of mistakes in that game. They had some turnovers. It was a cold weather game. I liked Penn State in that one, as I mentioned. Penn State really still dominated SMU. They basically dominated every phase of that game. Now I know they have to go out to Arizona, but still, Penn State is the better team, man. I mean, they're up from 8.5 to 11 now. So it looks like the money did come in initially on Penn State, and now maybe there's a little bit of buyback because across that key number, the 10.5, maybe there is some money coming in a little bit on the Boise side. I have heard some professional bettors say they like the Boise side here, but I don't actually agree with it. I think Penn State is the better team, and that would be the only side that I would look to in this game. I'm not going to play it, but 58% of tickets, 51% of the cash. So Penn State is a little bit public with a little bit less of the cash on them, but still, I think somewhere in the back of the public's minds, I still think is, Boise State Fiesta Bowl, Statue of Liberty against Oklahoma. Man, come on, man. I mean, that was so long ago. I think Oklahoma may not have been totally excited to be there. That was back in the day where bowl games, you had to judge like motivation and whatever, which you still do, but this is not one of those games. This is a playoff game now. So both of these teams, it matters, obviously, because this is the playoffs. So Penn State, James Franklin can't win big games, but that's not really what it is. He beats up on the teams that are worse than his team, and he loses to the teams that are better than his team. That's the whole deal here. So Penn State, they're the better team here. So it looks like a situation where, James Franklin, his team should be able to win this game. They win when they get to bully the other team around. I think that's going to be the case here. Penn State is definitely the better team. They're from the Big Ten. They played a much more difficult schedule. Boise has had extra time off, and I think that might hurt a little bit, man. When you have also an offense that kind of relies on timing a little bit, I mean, I don't think the extra time off is going to help, man. Whereas Penn State, they played in the Big Ten championship game. They lost to Oregon, and then they played again against SMU, and they won. And they didn't really have to face like a physical game in that SMU game. So I think Penn State is in a lot better shape here because they did play about a week and a half ago. So it does mean they have a little bit of rest too after that game. So they had a little bit extra rest. They're not playing exactly a week later. It's about a week and a half later. Whereas Boise's been off for like 2.5 weeks almost, I think, even though they did play in the Mountain West Championship. So their time off hasn't been as bad as it would be if they didn't play in that game. But still, Boise has had extra time off, and I don't think that's going to help. I think it's going to be a little bit of a rust factor for Boise. The fact that Penn State played about a week and a half ago, I think is going to be more of a momentum continuer for Penn State. So I like all that. And Penn State, I mean, they have a really good defense. They're going to be maybe the best defense that Boise has seen all year, man. And when Boise has run into some of the better defenses that have the ability to stop the run, which I mean, I know Penn State, yeah, I know their run defense is a little bit questionable. No, I don't think it's that questionable, though. I mean, I think Georgia is actually the team that has the way more questionable run defense, which I'll talk about them tomorrow. But Penn State, they're going to probably be the best defense that Boise has faced. I mean, Boise, their one big game this year is they face Oregon. So that's another thing. The public might come in and say, oh, Boise State played Oregon to within like 1 point or whatever. They barely lost to Oregon, and Penn State lost them by a little bit more than that on a neutral, whereas I think Boise – was Boise's game at home, though? I don't remember. I don't remember if it was at home or on the road. But the public might look at that and think, well, Boise almost beat them, and Penn State really like kind of lost to them. That was on the road. Yeah, they lost by 3, actually, on the road at Oregon. But beyond that, they face an easy schedule, man. There's no other way to look at this. Boise, they're in the Mountain West, man, and they face a much weaker schedule than Penn State, as Penn State being in the Big Ten. And Penn State, I mean, they played Ohio State, and they had chances to maybe win that game. They beat Illinois. They beat UCLA. They beat USC. I mean, they just faced a much more difficult schedule, man. And they lost to Oregon only by 8 in the Big 12 title game there. Penn State, I mean, they're the much better all-around team, too. And Boise State, we know who they are. They're Ashton Genty. And that's what everybody talks about. He probably should have won the Heisman, sure. He's probably the best running back in college football. But Boise, they don't have a very good offense otherwise. Like, they don't have a good passing attack. They run the ball. So that's not good. If they become one-dimensional, Penn State's defense should be able to focus on Genty. And if they know that's what Boise State is going to do, they should be able to shut them down. But then the other thing is Penn State's a big favorite here. And if they get out to a lead, Boise State is not well equipped to come back from a deficit, man, because again, they don't have a good passing attack. They have a good rushing attack. So if they fall behind, which they haven't really done this year, they played Oregon pretty close the whole time. If they fall behind by like a couple scores here, that deficit, if the deficit starts to mount, they are not equipped to come back, man. And Penn State should be able to shut them down in that case too. So Penn State, they're just the better all-around team, man. I mean, they have the more balanced offense as well. Even if Boise State does have the better running back, that's really all they have. Penn State has the better defense, and they're absolutely the best defense that Boise has faced all year. So that would be the only way that I would look in that game, and that's going to do it for me, man. I got to go get my bowl picks in again, like I said, with my Bowl Mania entries here. Once again, thanks for hanging out, guys. And my plays today, one more time: college basketball, VCU -2, St. Louis, Pick'em, Duquesne +2.5, Nevada -3.5. Hockey, Columbus Blue Jackets, split bet +1.5, puck line at -135, and money line +192. San Jose Sharks +146. NBA Milwaukee -1.5, and football bowls, college football Baylor -3.5. That's going to do it. I'm Tower Gang Toad. Thanks all you guys for hanging out, man. I hope so, Charles. Hopefully it all sounds good. Let's go, man. This is the last day of the year. And if I think I have 8 plays today or something, 7 plays. If I go like 7-1, I'll have to calculate it. But if I go 7-1, I think it might actually result in me still having a winning year, because I'm not below the break-even point by that much. I've just been treading water, man. But it looks like very likely it's going to be a losing year for me, and we'll have to have a much better new year, man, once it happens. So hopefully that happens. Everybody have a good New Year's Eve. Tower Game for life. Yes, thank you. Celebrate responsibly, everyone. And let's all watch our balls drop tonight, man. We'll all become men tonight. Happy New Year's to everyone. Let's have a better year next year as well. New Year's resolution is to not have a losing year, although I had 2 really good years the last 2 years. So whatever. Tower Gang Toad on Twitter, obviously, and you can follow the Tower Gang podcast, the most offensive podcast ever. Patreon.com/Tower Gang. You get live pre-show, post-show, hang out with us in the Telegram, submit to the mailbag, and you get Patreon Spotify feed as well. That's going to do it. Peace out, everybody. Thanks for hanging out.